You want to wait a couple of minutes for Mr. McGowan?
Yeah, we can wait.
We'll wait a few minutes.
We can open the meeting and then whatever you want to do. I mean, it's up to you guys.
We'll wait a couple of minutes, see if he shows up. If not, you got all the information?
I think he's in Christmas traffic.
Yeah.
No, he was going the other way. He was going east, he's coming west.
Send it to me.
No, because my computer, oh, there it is.
You want just one copy of it?
I will get one for everybody so that, they have that one, but I'd like to have an execution copy for tonight. Which, the only thing we're changing is the date and the names. That's it. Everything else is exactly the same.
Only the names and the dates have been changed.
Yeah,
to protect
protect the innocent,
That's another way of putting it.
Dragnet. Right?
Yeah.
Dragnet.
Yeah. Wow.
You're dating yourself.
At times I had to date myself because I couldn't find anybody else to date me, so I don't know what to tell you.
That's 12, 18,
Harry Morgan.
I remember when there was nothing but good shows on TV. Dragnet,
If he doesn't show up
12.
by 5 past, we're gonna go to the meeting, Nick, you'll have to handle whatever comes up. We're not gonna...
We only had 3 channels, it was easy.
Yeah,
It's right.
yeah, 6, 10, and 12, and then, you know, if you lived in exactly the right spot in town, you could get 64 out of Boston, and on the UHF
Yeah,
side.
UHF.
If you move the rabbit ears, just the right
Yeah.
position.
Yeah.
Oil.
Terry McGee.
Here?
Gary Cody.
Here.
Greg LaBoissonere.
Here.
Nick Gorham.
Here.
Ed Wazika.
Here.
Deb Bacon and Ian Dixon are not present.
Okay, if you stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If we also remain standing for invocation.
We got an invocation. I didn't realize we had
Just realized.
invocation tonight.
Lord, we ask that you help the council members make choices that are in the best interest of the taxpayers. You help you guide us along, make a safe, happy holiday for all the taxpayers in this town, and also all of us up on the council. So we ask that, Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, emergency evacuation plan is, go out them doors, there's an exit to the left and right. Behind us, there's exits to the left and right. Hopefully we won't need them. But, Madam Clerk, if you'd read, Section B.
Okay.
Just the explanation, you don't have to read all the rest right now.
Okay. Public hearing, discussion and/or action on proposed resolution of exemption of qualifying property used for manufacturing or commercial purposes in the town of Coventry pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws 44-5-61 and proposed resolution and consent order concerning resolutions with the town of Coventry pertaining to tax exemption, sewer assessments, sewer use charges, impact fees, tax and arrears, lease payments in arrears, use restrictions, and other terms proposed for further development of Center of New England Mall.
All right, thank you. Well, this is a thing that we voted on twice already, the consent agenda, and the reason why we're doing this is just so we have a couple new council members and just to reaffirm our vote. And at this time, Mr. Gorham, would you care, I don't know, Ed's not here, if you'd give a little explanation to,
Yes, of course. Thank you, Mr. President. Because we've done this twice before, and I know Member Cody has had a chance to discuss this, I think in closed session with Mr. McGowan, who should be here momentarily, and there is but one member of the audience tonight. I'll keep this fairly brief. This is the consent order that first was presented to the council in April of 2018. That consent order was approved. It included a tax treaty, which is why we had to give a display ad notice for tonight. After that tax treaty and consent order was approved, there was a slight change, and there was an issue raised by the Cambio parties in the receivership litigation, contending that we didn't call it a resolution. So the change was that the lender, RFP, withdrew its offer to the receiver. The order that was approved in April was contingent on the RFP agreement with the receiver being approved by the Superior Court. Because RFP withdrew from that agreement, we removed the clause in this consent agreement with the town of Coventry, which said that this consent agreement was contingent on RFP and the receiver obtaining approval of their agreement. In other words, the change that was made after April made this agreement freestanding. It is not contingent on RFP, the major lender at the mall, doing anything. And we also renamed it within its terms a resolution. That carried in, that carried at a meeting last summer by a margin, I think, of 3-1, if I'm not mistaken. 3-1.
No, this portion of it would have been,
It carried, I know it carried by at least 3 votes. It might have been 4. I'm sorry, I don't have that
I believe
handy.
it was 4-1.
It might have been
I
4-1.
believe it was.
Okay, so then we had an election, and because we had an election, and we want to make sure we get this done right, we have to vote on it again, because there are 2 new members of the council, and we don't want anyone to ever think or cast aspersions on this order saying, well, they never revoted it when they had a new council. That is the reason for tonight's meeting, and, you know, to be perfectly candid, I mean, the new members should have a right to vote on this. So that's why it's before the council tonight for consideration, and there really are no changes other than those that I've discussed, and those were changes made between April and July. So as for this agreement, there are no changes whatsoever from the July agreement other than the names on it and the date. We have an execution copy which will circulate at the end of the night that has Mr. Cody's name on it instead of Member Cody's name on it instead of Member Shibley's or President Shibley's, and we'll have Member Dixon's name on that instead of Member Carlson. And of course, Mr. President, you will be listed as the president.
so in short,
Those are the only
in short,
changes.
a ratification of the prior 2 votes.
You could call it a ratification, but I prefer to
In
call it
short.
a vote. You know,
Okay.
we're actually voting it again.
Okay,
And
then.
before we do anything, just a reminder, we have to open the public hearing.
Understood.
Thank you.
Yep.
Right, well, I know that, and I won't discuss, publicly, the terms that were discussed with the receiver while we were in executive session. But I know that the receiver had requested that the town of Coventry move on this and handle it this way. So when it does go before the court, it has new counsel attached to it instead of the old counsel. And, because there are people concerned with this that are fighting the receiver tooth and nail every step of the way, and he just wants to make sure that his T's are crossed and his I's are dotted. And by revoting this, I don't think we should call it a re-ratification either. By revoting this,
It's a separate vote,
I think it puts not only the town, but the receiver who's trying to work with the town and solve this, I think it puts us all on a firmer ground when it goes to the judge. So it gives us a better chance that the judge will rule favorably on this consent decree.
May I add one thing
Absolutely.
that Member Cody aptly raised? It's currently before Judge Taft Carter for consideration, and she indicated that she will be deciding this probably before the end of January. So we want to make sure the judge has confidence that, this new counsel is at least as much behind this consent order as was the counsel that we had before the election. So, thank you.
And I might add that we worked many hours on this with Mr. McGowan, and it was, definitely the best deal we could get for the town of Coventry. We did obviously invite all the council members here, and unfortunately, Ms. Bacon wasn't able to make it, and neither was Councilwoman Dixon. But I believe she has a statement, and so if you would be so kind as to read that, Mr. Manager, that'd be great.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ann had sent me an email after spending several hours with Mr. McGowan on this subject, and it's to Mr. Warzika and other interested parties. Mr. Warzika, you have my permission to read this email at the Town Council meeting on December 20th, 2018. This email will affirm that if I were at the December 20th, 2018 meeting, I would vote to approve the affirmation of the consent agreement dated April 16, 2018. I read the consent agreement dated April 16, 2018, and the consent agreement dated July 31st, 2018. I also met with Mr. Gorham, Mr. Warzika, and Mr. McGowan in the manager's office on December 17, 2018, to hear the history of the center and the history of the relationship with the entities involved and with the court-appointed receiver, Mr. Matthew McGowan. I had an opportunity to pose questions and participate in discussions. For ease of reference, I refer to the receiver's role with the entities as with the center. I support the consent agreements, although I do have concerns which I expressed. Regarding consent agreement dated April 16, 2018, based on the recommendation of Crossman Engineering that we process gravel on site and use it for purposes at the center, I am concerned about the impact on the neighbors and visitors to the center when the gravel operation and movement takes place. Although the agreement specifies hours of operations and issues such as dust and noise monitoring, I believe that we need to have a vigilant monitoring when the operation is implemented. In essence, there will be a gravel operation and movement in a commercial and residential area. I strongly urge the town council to adopt a gravel ordinance and an updated zoning ordinance to lessen to as great a degree as possible the impact on our residential and commercial property owners. Regarding consent agreement dated July 31st, 2018, my concerns relate to ensuring that we have updated ordinances to support our consent agreement and that the zoning ordinance be updated as quickly as possible. Secondly, since the part of the center is in West Greenwich, I asked who is our liaison to West Greenwich. I understand that the receiver is for the entire center of New England as identified as entities. However, our consent agreement applies to the relationship with Coventry only. But for example, once road improvements take place, then the center of New England Boulevard will be improved, and part of it is in another town. This is a matter for discussion on another day, but it is an issue which deserves some thought. Thank you to the council members who have allowed me to have Mr. Warzika offer my comments. Ann Dixon, Town Council, District 1. So she is in agreement with, she would have voted for this as well.
Obviously, she can't vote, but it's nice to know that she, she agrees with the ratification of this, or the vote on this. So, if there's no other, questions or comments from the council, I'd like to motion to, open up public hearing.
Motion to open public hearing.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion carried. Public hearing is now open. Any members from the audience wish to speak? Seeing none, hearing none? Look for a motion to close public hearing.
Motion to close public hearing.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. If there's no other questions, I entertain a motion to vote again on this
I
resolution.
will motion to vote, make a motion to approve this,
I will-
essence,
I
for the
will-
third time.
I will second that as long as it's accompanied by a roll call vote.
Okay, Madam Clerk, will you take a roll call vote, please? This is all in favor?
All in favor?
Yes.
Okay.
Roll call, individual.
Yes.
Yes.
LaBoissonier, yep. And McGee,
Yes.
okay. Thank you.
Okay, do you have
Before
any-
we adjourn, we have an execution copy, which, I just noticed we still had Judge Silverstein's name on the order.
He's not gonna hear it.
No, he's not. It's gonna be Sarah Taft Carter. I put her name on, and, the town manager is bringing out the execution copy with the correct name and date.
Oh,
Okay,
okay, that's, we're all gonna sign that.
Yeah,
this
that's just the
this evening.
execution copy.
We can
Don't
vote.
sign anything yet, because we wanna get the judge's correct name.
all right, no taking, we'll cover that after,
Yeah.
So,
I wouldn't, Mr. President, if I may so request, your indulgence, please, I wouldn't adjourn this meeting until after we all publicly sign the document here,
That's fine,
sitting at the
yeah.
council bench, and then we can adjourn the meeting afterwards. Mr. Wazika did inform us that the camera was on all,
Yeah, that's
I
fine.
just want whoever's going to watch this online to be able to see that everything was done out in the open, in the
Absolutely.
public eye.
All right, with that having been said, we have the execution pages here, which will be attached to the original, which we have. So I'll just, actually, we only need one execution page. You know what, why don't we do it in duplicate? One copy for the receiver and one copy for the town. So I'm sending 2 copies down, and you can sign in the appropriate place on each.
What was the new judge's name? Taft?
Sarah Taft
Taft Carter. Oh, okay. I was looking, I
Yeah,
know that he
not
was
a
there,
problem,
but he's, all right. That's those. You got a second spot too.
Is the second spot?
You called it, there was a second spot with your name too. Right under mine on that page there. I got you as member and then as president as well too. And there's the second copy. Sure. Good.
Okay, are there any comments, from the council before we adjourn this meeting?
I just
I thought I could have sworn I heard you say, oh, Mr. McGowan.
Well, you have good.
Thanks, yeah.
Hey, you want your copy? My only comment would be to, thank Mr. LeBlanc for coming out. I mean, this, to me, being privy to the consent agreement, this is an important issue that faces the town of Coventry. And, I honestly thought that there would be more people here tonight. This has, a rather large monetary effect on the town of Coventry moving forward. I would have thought that more people would have come out tonight and been interested in what's going on in the town. So I just wanted to thank Mr. LeBlanc for coming out and being here and witnessing what the council is trying to do with the new leadership and stuff and moving forward. So, thank you. Other than that, Mr. President, I don't have anything.
Solicitor, do you have something to say? Want to comment?
Not really, I mean, it's up to you if you wanna hear from Mr.
Actually, it's passed
McGowan.
and done, I think we're good.
Okay. He's
you know,
nodding his
If
head.
there's no questions, there's no comment, a motion to adjourn will be in
He's trying
order.
to catch the end of the sandwich.
Motion to adjourn?
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, meeting adjourned, thank you for coming.
Ed, I just
What have you been
need
doing,
one
riding around on the
copy
fire
of
truck?